Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk9622. CryptoPunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to PunkCast. Today we've got Punk9622. He's a 3 Atty with spots, cigarette, and a punked out Mohawk. He is the founder of Non-Fungibly Curious, a Web3 consultancy, and partner at Dream Ventures, funding early stage startups and Web3 blockchain and crypto projects. Please welcome the man with all the swag, JimmySwag.eth. Jimmy, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks so much for having me. That was a stellar intro. Really happy to be here and shoot the shit on punks for a bit.
Awesome. An absolute honor to have you here, sir. Maybe we could kick off with I guess, a bit of an introduction to yourself and some of the things that you're sort of working on and how you got here.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. I think unlike a lot of punks, I'm perhaps not as crypto native as others. My background most extensively is in the streaming media space. I'm based in Las Vegas. I formerly ran a poker content production company, doing streaming production, distribution of live poker tournaments and events. So I'm a degen through and through is the moral of the story there. I've been dabbling with a bunch of different stuff over the past few years. I've been angel investing since 2019. I've been in crypto passively since 2017 or 2018, just investing from the sidelines, not really taking part, getting to understand the technology or anything like that. And that all led me to basically early part of last year when NFTs came on the mainstream purview and I started to take notice. I thought it was ridiculous. And that was until I actually started buying some of these things. And like a lot of people, I feel like last year, went down the rabbit hole very quickly. So I didn't do my own research. I bought and figured out the rest later, and the rest is history. But despite the irresponsible start, I've managed to stick the landing, I think, and I've gotten involved in some cool stuff more recently. So I focus a lot, given the media background. I focus a lot on working with classic, as I think about it, like Web2 IP and creating digital fan experiences, utilizing NFT technologies, just creating sort of new age digital means to engage fandom where it lives, not necessitating an in-person interaction to create a fulfilling experience for fans. And then on the venture capital side, also investing a lot in different Web3 startups with a particular emphasis on those with mainstream penetration. So as we think about bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3, we're looking to invest in exciting new projects that are going to be the sort of tool set to make that a reality in hopefully the not so distant future. So I think about it. I'm a little bit in the macro of Web 3 investing, a little degenning on the side with some trading as well. And then on the micro in the sort of the building operational side of things with some fun projects here and there at the same time, but all around just a lot of fun.
Oh, awesome. And then just to unpack your background a little bit too, did you come from sort of a business or marketing background? Like what would you sort of say would be your bag of tricks?
A little bit of all of the above. I actually went to school for accounting and then I moved to Vegas originally to get into real estate. I got hired at that poker business to do marketing at first and then got into content and production and then was elevated to president and primarily doing biz dev. So it's been I'm 30 and it's basically been a journey since college the past 8 years or so of getting to be exposed to every facet of business from finance to marketing to operations and everything like that, which has been really fun and really valuable, I think, for learning along the way.
Awesome. And just your poker experience, does that make you a good poker player as well, or?
Not as good as I'd like. It depends who I'm playing with is how good I am, I'd say. I have some decent winnings. I've played in some decently large tournaments in the past. Honestly, it's there's a lot in NFTs that translates well from poker, and I think that's largely why I took such a liking to it. Whether it's whether it's, certain themes like expected value or risk analysis or going all in. Just little, we can come up with all the cliches in the world to come up with parallels. But yeah, I mean, I think funny enough, I'm in a group chat with a lot of poker players that have an NFT affinity. I think there's just a direct correlation between like the calculated degen activities, is how I think about it. Like, yes, poker, and I do like some sports betting and fantasy sports on the side too. Like, they're all like degenerate activities, but it's calculated. Like, you do it when you have an edge. And similarly in poker, like, I know the tournaments when I have an edge, and I know the tournaments when I don't have an edge. And I will typically play tournaments where I do have an edge. And similarly in NFTs, you're looking for the strong projects where, your expected value of doing well in investment is positive versus some of the shittier projects out there where your analysis may run and it's not so positive, and in fact it's probably negative. So it's all about just picking your spots, I guess.
No, absolutely. And I guess the reason why I ask is I sort of see a few poker players that have come across the NFTs and have done really, really well. I think it's just sizing risk and sizing bets. So you've got a little bit more in the bag to sort of work with, right? But 100%. Cool. And talk me through your first NFT purchase. I think you sort of said that you did no research and sort of aped in. So do you remember what your first sort of NFT was and what sort of got you over the line to making that purchase?
Yeah, so I remember very vividly. It's like a where were you when kind of moment. It was summer-ish of last year, just over a year ago, I guess now. My first NFT ever would be now I haven't checked on it, but most 99% likely defunct project called Dope Shibas. And they were like these you might know that one. It was or maybe not, but honestly, it was from like OpenSea window shopping, and I'd had some buddies who had gotten deeply involved in the space, and I was still kind of iffy on it. And I just kind of like exploring around. These things were cute. It was it was during the whole like cute animal PFP movement, I feel like. And at the time they were like 50, $100. So I'm thinking, why not just splash around a little bit. Bought one, and like, you start to like, you have to feel a sense of pride of like, this is, there are 10,000 dope Shibas. There are a lot like mine, but this one is mine and mine alone. And that psychological phenomenon, I think, stuck with me. But my real first big investment was which actually came about 48 hours after the first purchase. It just escalated so quickly. Was Gutter Cat Gang, and I bought a cat at like 5 ETH. ETH at the time was in like the 3 to 4K range. So it was about at the time a $20,000 purchase, which was insane for what I thought I was getting myself into. But then, to this day, like I've gone on to invest even more into Gutter Cat Gang. I'm a big fan of the project, and it's proven to be one of the strongest communities in my mind. And that's what really like got me drinking the Kool-Aid, was being a part of a really strong community like that. Super excited. I remember, I think it was a coincidence, but when I first bought in, there was like I think it was Wooly or like another notable DJ was in the Discord doing like a community party event. GutterCon at the time was just a few weeks later here in Vegas where I'm based. So it was like this dopamine overdose of things derived from this first purchase. So then, needless to say, I got hooked. And I now hold 3 apes, obviously a CryptoPunk, Dead Fella is the other one, Deeply, Atom Bomb Squad. I've all the airdrops from apes as well, so I'm holding a good amount of other side land. I should probably a lot of Gutter Cat Gang as I referenced, but yeah, I mean just a bunch of projects that I've come to accumulate over the years, each with its own sort of specialness to it, and even a memory associated with it. But all I'm fond of for different reasons.
Yeah, no, I've just got dope Shibas on screen here. They kind of look like cool cats, but just yellow or orange, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'm glad you said that, because my my beginner's thesis, my radar was right. I had the right direction, just the wrong target, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny. I remember very vividly around that time. I think Cool Cats was around 2 or 3 ETH when I had bought that Gutter Cat. And I mean, since then, Cool Cats then ran to 10 ETH, which was sickening at the time, but then came back down to earth to 3 ETH. I think maybe they're 3.5 today after the Animoca investment announcement. But it's funny, and that's so much of the space is just right place, right time, and picking the right horse in certain spots. Like I picked dope Shibas. I'm sure there are some people that picked Cool Cats around that time. Like you just never really know exactly how things are going to pan out. But that's the beauty of it. Like no one really knows what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I think most of the time it's curious and experimental, and sometimes it takes off and sometimes it doesn't. But I think I do remember Gutter Cats. I did actually have some Gutter Cats do, and that community goes hard, man. Like, I think if you went on Twitter, it's just like gang, like just retweets everywhere. But and did you get in before the rats came out? Is that sort of baked into the price then? And
so I came shortly after rats actually. So I had to. That was the problem, and really like the part of the gateway drug was, well, that if you buy the cat, you got to buy the rat, because then you get the other third or fourth species. But then it wasn't just the new species; it was 3 and 4. Then you got to buy the other one. And meanwhile, my wife, who bless her heart, is still with me after all of this, is listening to me like, honey, I put $20,000 into this picture of a cat, but now I got to buy the $5,000 rat so I can get this new species. It's like I'm just talking gibberish. So it's funny, and you gotta take a step back sometimes and realize the absurdity of it all. Just like how, from the outside looking in, how crazy the space is. Obviously, the end game isn't swapping thousands of dollars around for pictures of animals. Like this is meant to be something much bigger than what it is today. But that's really why this is also exciting, is that we're here early for whatever is to come, and the reason we're here early is we believe it could be something really special. So it's a cool time to be in the space.
Totally. And maybe just take me back to that point in time, right? So I think if Gutter Cats was sort of your first dip into sort of NFTs, what was that like? Was it sort of the first time you were sort of entering to Discord and a community and exploring that? And at what sort of point in time did you go, this is actually legitimate, and it sort of struck a chord with you with NFTs?
Yeah, so the answer on Discord, it was like not my first exposure to Discord, I guess. I'm a gamer through and through, so I've spent time in gaming related Discords with friends, particularly like World of Warcraft. So being doing like arenas and stuff in Discord chats and everything else. So I was familiar, just not nearly as familiar as I am today after now being in like 70 of these goddamn things. But community was a big aspect in this, where, and this is the better example would be something like a Bored Ape Yacht Club. And at the time, I remember, I think one of my first weeks in the space, I remember distinctly that Von Miller changed his profile picture to his Bored Ape at the time. And it was this unique dynamic where it's you get desensitized to it, I think, being in the space for a while. But at the time, it was like, I have a way. Steph Curry is another great example, where if I hold one of these Bored Apes and I can make this my profile picture, that gives me something uniquely and verifiably in common with Steph Curry that nothing else ever would. Beyond, like, it's basically like wearing his Under Armour shoes, but with scarcity in mind, such that theoretically only 9,999 people in the entire world would be able to associate themselves with Steph Curry and align themselves with Steph Curry in such a way. And obviously that then applies to so many other celebrities and people who have come in and sometimes out of the space over the past year. But that was just a really cool dynamic to me. And that was only one facet of community and everything that it's all about. And I think there's something to be said around, commercial rights to some of these things, Gutter Cats and Bored Apes included, that really got me thinking. And I bought my first ape back last September, October, so about a year ago now. And I had done so with the purpose of creating a business around it. Like one of the traits associated had a link to a business that I had been working on. And so different things like that. Like I very quickly, for these assets in particular, understood the use case that could, be applicable very soon and very immediately. Obviously, like I think the end game use case, like I said earlier, for NFTs goes well beyond just the PFPs and JPEGs and all of that. But that was just part of like the initial sort of aha moment for me that has only become more and more aha-y over the past 12 months plus.
Awesome. So talk to me about your journey onto sort of CryptoPunks, right? So I think you're relatively new in the CryptoPunk sort of space, but you've been in NFTs for quite some time now.
Yeah, so punks to me were, being by punk standards, I got into NFTs late in early middle part of 2021. To me, that was always like the gold standard hashtag goals for everything NFTs are all about, to the point of it being unattainable. Like it just like wasn't even a thought of like ever having a punk, to be honest. And so I ended up going down the road of Bored Apes. I think I was enamored by a lot of like the cultural, I guess, significance that apes were in the early goings, with how much they picked up steam so quickly in the early days. Obviously, punks already had that steam, but punk or apes at the time were more attainable for price point wise. And so bought into apes, and I like I said, I've had it over a year. I've spent a lot of time in that community and other communities. I have, I've been as much as it's about enjoying communities, about finding the communities that are a fit. I I don't I don't drink a ton these days. I don't smoke weed ever these days. So there's certain aspects of certain communities that I am and am not necessarily aligned with. And I, as being in like the venture capital space, being like a business person through and through, like what I seek to align myself with is certainly builders, but also like very like macro mindset type of folks. And it's also not lost on me that the PFP you have, whether it be on Twitter or even on LinkedIn, that gets a foot in the door in a lot of different conversations. So that the aspects of community and ownership that are around like constructive forces of building, for lack of a better word, that my value set in the space began to evolve and change and develop over the past year. And simultaneously, back to the whole like floor price thing, there was a degree of uh, equivalence between floor prices that has come to be over time. And so all that being said, like the stars kind of aligned for me of like, okay, this now might make sense to do some portfolio reshuffling, buy into punks. I knew that I wanted to since like May of this year, but kind of waiting for the right opportunity because market conditions were a little bit sus for, I mean, they still are, but certainly for a while there. Frankly, during NFT NYC, I think there was a punk pump, and I bet kind of wrong on timing. Where I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but did they get down to like 50s floor price for a
Yeah,
while? Like they
I
had
did.
gotten pretty low and then swung back up. And so at that point, you know what? I'm like this is a long term horizon for me. Fuck it. Like I'm not gonna just try to time the market perfectly. And honestly, like there was something to be said around like the 1 year anniversary of getting into the NFTs for the first time with Dope Shibas. To circle back to that, where I felt like I had earned it. Like I had like the punks had always seemed unattainable, but I paid my dues. I've worked in this space for a year now. I've launched projects. I've sold out projects at this point. I've put in the work, and whether right or wrong, I felt like I had done my time to say like I like to earn the CryptoPunk title beyond just shelling out the money to make that my PFP. So all this aligned, and that's why I ended up making the decision not too long ago. I guess about a month or two ago now to get into the community for the first time.
No, awesome. And I because I think we connected on LinkedIn, because I think I saw your profile picture on LinkedIn as a CryptoPunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was it? Were you before you put your CryptoPunk on LinkedIn? Was it your real doc's face, or was it actually or another NFT that you had?
It was my ape actually, and that was
Okay.
kind of that was an important shift for me. And I not to I think some people tend to overvalue like the importance of your brand as like a Twitter profile picture or whatever. But in the business world, I had gone starting last year. I had gone from like 1,000 or 2,000 just connections on LinkedIn to now I think like 13 or 14,000. So I've put a lot of work into content creating and creating a brand professional presence on LinkedIn that is tied into the NFT space, and that was all through the lens of my ape. So it was a big decision for me to switch that, where I was from what I was recognizable as, to a crypto punk. And it wasn't done with a short term horizon in mind by any means. This is like for the foreseeable future. this is the foot that I want to put forward in the space. This is the community that I want to align myself with. This is the brand that I want to build. I'm working on some like social content stuff right now, which is very like crypto punk forward, like utilizing my PFP as like the face of everything that I'm doing going forward, which is exciting. And it's, I owe a lot to a lot of other people that aren't me. And a PFP brand is only as good as the community members that comprise it. And there's certain punks out there that use content that I've been a fan of that have basically shaped me in sort of a professional person in this NFT space that I owe a lot to in establishing that presence in and out of Web3, which is a really cool dynamic that I now get to, in a way, reap the rewards of that hard work and time spent. And that's something that I'll never take for granted as long as I'm in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I've been watching and reading a lot of your threads on LinkedIn, and they're probably one of the most insightful sort of threads and credible voices in Web3 that I've sort of read on there, as compared to most of the other people on LinkedIn in Web2 Normieville land, right? So yeah, no, it's great to sort of have you on as a punk and being an ambassador for us on there as well. So
yeah, thank you so
great
much
to have you on board. And so in sort of Web2 real land, so what are you actually working on? Like, you've got Non-Fungibly Curious and you've got the Dream Ventures. I think I sort of understand that, but what's Non-Fungibly Curious?
Yeah, so Non-Fungibly Curious is it's consulting and advisory in Web3 strategy. And that sounds very vague, but really the emphasis is on working with Web2 businesses to create Web3 strategies that are well thought out, authentic, and long lasting. And as people in the space will know, that's not necessarily like strategies that will make you a lot of money. It's meant to be strategies that are immersive, that are rewarding, that are enriching. And that's rewarding both ways, on both the brand side and the customer side. But really, they're strategies that turn customers into community, and reshapes how businesses think about the marketing pipeline in the traditional world of running digital advertisements on Facebook until you generate a conversion and then remarket to them later, to having an upfront transaction via having your most loyal customers buy into what you're doing as a brand, and then your sort of funnel becomes a rewards mechanism back to that community, which turns customers into advocates, basically. It's not unlike, I always compare it to, whether you're a fan of a sports team and you're wearing that team's jersey and you're in another place and you see someone walking down the street who's wearing that same jersey, and you automatically have a connection with that person you've never seen or never met before, and frankly may never see or meet again. Same way, wearing like a certain like Supreme apparel and someone else is wearing Supreme, like you have something in connection with that person. It's basically creating that relationship at scale globally in a digital forum and allowing businesses to take part in that relationship. So it's unlike anything seen in Web2 previously, but obviously super valuable in being able to do it correctly in Web3. And I think doing it correct is the operative word, because there are both individual artists and influencer wise, but also in brand world, there's a lot of opportunists trying to take advantage of this movement for their own bottom line. And I think it's important to have expertise that is able to handhold a bit, educate first, activate second, and create strategies that are more long-term horizon than short-term profit seeking, I suppose.
Yeah, I a lot of that sort of definitely resonates with me. I sort of feel like a lot of the brands and Web2 businesses are curious about Web3 and NFTs, and they're coming from a top down, right? And I think they really need to get some insights, just like people like you and some real degens on the team to help them navigate through.
Well, it's an important point you bring up there. I want to zero in on what you said about degens, because I think, and it touched on a point you brought up earlier about LinkedIn, where you have a lot of people talking about Web3 without actually living in Web3. And I'm not saying Web3 is spending over your means on stupid JPEGs, but it is a culture. Like, there's a certain, especially in like the most tight knit of communities, and really for brands at this point in time, those are the communities that they're selling to. you need a firm understanding and an authenticity and appreciation of that culture before you try to engage with that culture, because those participants are also incredibly suspicious. They're incredibly astute. They are very savvy. And if you are seen as opportunistic and extractive of that community, then you're going to totally get roasted as a brand. And by the nature of, in a way, of blockchain technology, the blockchain is forever. Like you can't have a PR snafu, go into crisis mode, sweep it under the rug, and go about your day. Like that shit lives forever. So it's kind of a one and done type of thing. But I think it's important. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but it was important to have that degen input of, they call it like a weirdly a voice of reason, which is bizarre to say that in the context of a degen, but someone on the team to sort of be the mouthpiece of that community that is so important to the space right now.
100%. And when I look at this as well, I think it's a really big mental shift from Web 2 to Web 3, because I sort of feel like Web 2 is, naturally it is, extractive, right? It's profit seeking. And in those instances, I guess the economic alignment of interests aren't there in sort of Web 2. So I think that's just a natural way that they're going to approach it. But I think when you sort of get to Web 3, it's like, well, it should be more of a win-win, right? How do we sort of both win from the NFT drop, or you coming to sort of Web 3? And I think that's the hardest thing to sort of unwrap if you haven't really been, living and breathing and participating as part of the communities. So no, yeah. I think there's a lot of value to sort of add there for sure. And perhaps your CryptoPunk gives you a little bit of that authenticity when talking with a lot of these brands too, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, it does. And I'm not going to lie and say that, I, especially in the Web3 space, if I were to send the same message as a non-CryptoPunk person, I think chances are I would get a response before that other person. I think that adds to the value of this PFP. Like, it makes you an authority, for better or worse. Like that's actually a bit of a dangerous phenomenon, because you could assign false expertise to someone just because of their profile picture. So I think that's something that, we all need to be wary of. But I do believe with great power comes great responsibility. And as mentioned earlier, like that's not a responsibility that I take lightly. Like I go out of my way to be very, whether it be with brands, whether it be with friends. Like I'm actually, some people I've spent a lot of time with over the past year, and I'll post something about NFTs on a separate account. Like my Instagram, for example, which is mostly friends and family, I never really talk about it. And then they'll see me something from LinkedIn and I'm like, what the hell? Why didn't you ever mention this? Because I actually go so far out of my way to not try to indoctrinate people. Like I'm big into like education and learning. And if someone wants to learn and educate themselves on this budding, exciting, high potential technology, I'm here for it. But at the same time, I'm not trying to, pump my own bags, for one, to get people in uncomfortable positions with speculative financial instruments, and three, just try to extract value from other people in general, like whether that be brands and getting paid a fee to tell them I'm going to make you a bunch of money off NFTs, or friends saying you should go buy floor on this NFT that I own so that, we bring more liquidity into the project. It's all about like big picture stuff here. I like to be a guiding force for good in the space, I guess. And I hope I do the CryptoPunk community proud with that North Star in mind.
No, I think those things that you sort of mentioned, I think resonates with the punk sort of values from what I've sort of seen, right? And I think those are things that have been sort of drummed into me, listening to, I guess, most of the CryptoPunk sort of thought leaders in the space too, in terms of, where they sort of sit on these topics. But it's an interesting sort of insight, right? I mean, I do sort of feel that the CryptoPunk community do carry what's the word? A sense of gravitas, or sort of a taste making group, in terms of if the punks like it, then it's okay. Let's all ape in together, right? So I think they're always looking for that a little bit of validation from the community for that as well. But cool. And then just talking about more specific about your CryptoPunk, dude, you got a really cool CryptoPunk. Tell me about the selection process. Like, how did you? Were you looking at specific traits? How did you sort of land on, the spotty with the Mohawk?
Okay, yeah, I'm so glad you asked this because we're flying through here and I've been talking a lot and I was like I have to bring this up even if it's the last thing I say in this call here because it's actually a funny story. Um, so obviously I've been looking for a while and like anything else, like you want a crypto punk that generally resembles you. I am a white dude. I have red hair. Um, and so I'm picking based upon that. But I also want to, I'm not necessarily married to any certain traits, but I kind of want something that just resonates with me for some reason or another. Um, and so this one comes across, and I've been watching it for a while. It had been listed, it was like 85, it was down to 80, then 75. I forgot if I bought it for 70 or 75 ETH. But I'd been watching it for a while, and I put in some lob ball offers here and there, none landed. But the rationale behind it and what clicked with me was, so I mentioned earlier, like I don't smoke weed. I drink a little bit here and there, but like I'm not like a big party animal anymore. I enjoy like a nice whiskey by the fire at home or something. And so that wasn't always the case. And for a long time there, I had been to like 7 Coachellas in a row through college and shortly after. I'm based in Vegas. Would go to EDCs. I've been to Ultra Miami. I've been every which way across the party space. And there's this. I'm going to show you on our camera here, but no one else is listening gets to see. But there was a very specific festival I went to where I did my hair in a mohawk, and back in college, I smoked the occasional cigarette here and there, and frankly, like this, my crypto punk. I'll show you the picture here. My crypto punk has become like an homage to a former self, as I come to see it. Even the JimmySwag.eth, like that was like a college nickname where this sort of persona has taken on like a historical significance in my life. Like this is not who I am anymore, but I get to like play in this Web3 space as someone who used to be a lot cooler than I am today. And that's kind of what that crypto punk represents to me is it's like he has the mohawk like I did at music festivals. He smokes little cigarettes, he's a bit acneed up because he's like a pimply
Teenager.
college kid. Like it's just everything that I was, which isn't it doesn't make me miss those days necessarily, but it makes me appreciate where I've been and where I've come to in this journey that's all led me to like, having fun in this crazy new space that I never thought I'd be in. So it's like a token appreciation, I guess, which I think is kind of a fun thing.
Mate, that photo looks exactly like him, like 9622 exactly. So
Yeah,
no,
it's
thanks for sharing the story.
that one's not getting public, but you get to see it, and everyone will have to take your word for its accuracy.
Yeah. And just out of curiosity, are you staying anon? Because I know your name is
No,
different
I'm
from
I'm I'm
no,
I'm
semi
not.
dot.
So I
Okay.
kind of I have personas separate where like LinkedIn is like the constructive businessy stuff, and then I do some shit posting on Twitter. So I like to separate church and state. So the whole Jimmy Swag ETH is kind of like the just like nonsense, actually the ridiculousness of
Shit
the space
posting
for what
and
it's worth, and then the
yep.
LinkedIn side is like my actual name, more constructive, business driven, and I get to do both.
Okay, got it. Makes sense. And cool. So what's in the bag? So I've got your OpenSea up and running here. I think we spoke about Bored Apes and your Gutter Cats. I sort of see some Chroma Squiggles, Doodles, World of Women, etc. Like, what is it that you like collecting, and I guess why do you collect?
There's a lot of psychology baked into that question. I think I mean based upon just right there like Gutter Cats, Bored Apes, and World of Women. I personally put a lot of value on the commercial rights aspect of these projects. Um, the Gutter Cats in particular, I've always seen that, and it's not like a groundbreaking observation, but I see there's a lot of parallels between that and Bored Apes in terms of like the fundamentals of each project. But right now they're like less than 10% of the floor price of Bored Apes. So my thesis is like if we see these things post bear market having an upswing, like I would rather accumulate a bunch of the let's call it like watered down bored apes or diet bored apes. Like that's frankly the thesis. There's a lot of parallels between like mutants to clones, ApeCoin. They're going to be launching GangCoin shortly. Like yeah, they kind of copy paste a lot of what the apes have done, but that's fine by me. If apes have done well with it, like I'm fine with rinsing, repeating a bit. World of Women is a obviously like I think that's probably like the preeminent like female led project. I like that angle to this, especially as more females are entering and building into space. One of them I got one as a PFP for my wife. So she gets to use it as like her sort of digital identity. I like the values of the project. I like Reese Witherspoon, Eva Longoria, others being attached to the project. I will admit, I'm not really active in any communities right now, just because I've been so busy elsewhere. But like, I'm not super engaged with that community. But I just value that project a lot, and I think like what it stands for, the values are fantastic. That project a lot, and I think like what it stands for, the values are fantastic. Doodles, I'm in. I honestly, that's one of my better flips. I bought a handful of Doodles at point 0.4 and ended up selling at like 14
Nice.
after a few months, so did pretty good there. And at the same time, though, they then like ran up a little bit after I sold them. Like, oh shit! So then I bought another one to at least have some skin in the game, but has since come back down to earth a little bit. But nonetheless, I have that doodle there. I like the project. I think the art's cool. I have friends that have doodles. So it's kind of like a fun thing of like, hey, we're all in this together, whatever happens. Deadfellows I really like is another one that I'm in. I think Betty's great. I think she does a great job as like a certainly a voice in the space, but then also how she divides up her time. She's on LinkedIn as well. So I think she does a really good job of like, yes, being there like in the Web3 DGen community, but also, um, being a voice on LinkedIn, like speaking to professionals as well. Zenica's another guy that does this well. So I value that, and kind of like how dynamic she is of being able to work with corporates. They just did the activation with Wrangler jeans, stuff like that. I think is really cool. Kaiju Kings is another one. That was my thesis. There was I missed CyberKongs, and that was like I think it was the devs from the CyberKongs Kings that then spun up Kaiju Kings, and I then you have our waste instead of bananas. That's very, very high level thinking there, but that was what all it was. But all that being said, I think they've done a really strong job of managing it since then. So that's the other one that I like, and I have it in the vault as I'm looking through here.
That's
Um,
cool.
and then just rattling off Robotos, I like that because they have the Time Magazine deal. That's just like they've kind of struggled by floor price recently, but I like the angle. Like, let's say if I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, where if they were to create Roboto's IP targeted to children, I would love to one day like impart these to them as kind of like have a vested interest in this, like having a Robotos themed birthday party, but then getting to own a piece of that IP versus paying for like Pixar Toy Story IP that you actually have that brings you no financial value other than extractive. So I think it was nice. It's my way of teaching the next generation about Web3, and then Crypto Mores. I like the theme of mental health. That's a very important cause to me, so I resonated with that one early. I had bought early on. I bought one of the one of ones for like an ETH and a half, which at the heyday was probably worth up to like 30 ETH, which would have been a nice little flip. But like I always do, held a bit too long. So I still believe in them long term, but they've come back down to earth a little bit, like everything else, I guess. And then on the brand side, given like that they were there, one of the first I think that has done NFTs really well as a brand would be like Atom Bomb Squad. So that's kind of that rounds out I think the vault of just things that I like, that I align myself with, that I've enjoyed being a part of and collecting over the past year, that I have no intent of selling in the foreseeable future.
That's cool. Great collection, great sort of vault there. But I do remember Cyberkongs at one stage hit like 100 ETH, and Banana was like dropping like I don't know 1,000, a thousand US bucks worth per day, right? So that was
Yeah.
definitely got the FOMO happening there. Cool.
Yeah.
And then are you looking at any sort of NFT collections to get into right now, or are you sort of comfy with your bags at the moment?
I'm pretty comfy. If I were to buy anything new, I have an ape listed currently. I'm trying to do some portfolio shuffling. I need more ETH to hold on to. I think I'd probably be investing like so the projects that I get FOMO over these days, like CloneX just had a big announcement. A little bit of FOMO there, although to to be honest, like I don't love the Nike involvement. Like I think that kind of goes against a lot of Web3 ethos, which is been part of my rationale for not investing yet, although it's a great project. So, I think I'm just kind of splitting hairs there. Um, Another one that I've looked at, why am I blanking on it? I'm looking through like all-time volume right now, trying to figure out what is most interesting to me. Azuki is one that I've kind of missed. I wouldn't mind opening up a position there. Cool Cats, I've been looking at for a long time, but until the recent Animoca news, had no real like exciting reason to get involved. And then besides that, like one of my biggest misses so far has been in art blocks. Like I have one squiggle, but I'd love to expand my collection there. Obviously, we're in a couple groups together. Like we just with a few other people, we bought a QQL. I'd probably buy a QQL of my own. In fact, like that'd probably be my next purchase because I've been doing some outputs and there's some that I love and I want to make sure that this actually becomes one. So I guess some combination of that with probably art blocks leading the way.
Absolutely. I think once you get into the art blocks sort of rabbit hole, it's hard to get out, right? I mean, there's just so many different pieces that are absolutely stunning and beautiful that you just want to get to the bag. But I'm with you on that. That's awesome. And then I guess when you reflect back on your sort of NFT career, like what's your sort of best win or greatest moment you can think of?
So best win. Why once it was just kind of it wasn't a lot, but it was actually the morning of that time announcement for Robotos, and the market was pumping, and I don't know what it was, but I managed to snipe like a semi rare like crowned one. I just like whenever when anything's pumping, you buy and then list it for like a exorbitant price above what you had bought it for, and literally at the time, I think I bought it for like 1.5 and then maybe listed it for like 3.5 right away. Like I'll take a quick like 2x plus, and within 20 minutes it sold. So I was like
Nice.
it was like a 100% flip up from 1.5 to 3.5. I'm like, damn, this space is weird. And then the other one, which is kind of like it's so in hindsight, but just kind of like which in hindsight, these were all such bull signals and just not bull signals, like top signals. Like we should have known. But when I don't know if you remember this, but when Full Body Ape Club dropped, and basically what you could do is as an ape holder, board ape, you could go in and generate the full body version of your ape. I maxed out my mints. Like at the time, generated six of these things, and I pulled within a day, just selling off these shitty ape derivatives, like 10 ETH in profit, just off of like the random rarity outputs of some of these within like 12 hours. So it's not the biggest wins, but it's like the most like quick sort of just like, wow, too that was very easy to the point of it being too easy, which again goes back to like, all right, that was kind of a top signal in hindsight.
Awesome. Um, no, I really love hearing these wins, right? Because it was a bit of a crazy bull run that we sort of had, and I really miss those days, right? Because I think in this
Yeah.
bear market, it's like sort of dried up. And then, what is your worst loss or regret in NFTs? Then, like anything come to mind?
Not selling. Not sometimes more than others. No, I think really it's my biggest regret at this very moment is trying to do too much. Like I think like a lot of people, especially when I first got into the space, um, you always want to find like the next Board Ape Yacht Club. It's like cliche, but even beyond that, just like the next like big pump project. And in the process, you diversify your bag so heavily, and you're minting anything and everything. Just because if you hit massive 2% of the time, even like that negates all of your losses and then a lot more potentially. But ultimately, like I resent myself when luckily we're looking at my vault today, but looking at like the non-vaulted NFTs and like just the shit that I have in there. It's I like there's something said for just like a clean portfolio of just high quality stuff. And I think that's my biggest regret is just not focusing on what was working. just and doubling down on things that were not just necessarily doing well financially, but just had a track record of performance as I think about it. And those opportunities existed back then of just being able to, capture even projects that had been around for 2-3 months that had continued to produce, whether the floor price didn't have to be going up, but just was steady through and through, versus just minting every just bullshit cute animal PFP, or even not even minting, but a day or two later, getting involved with all of the influencer pumps at the time. I hate to name names, but like Winter Bears comes to mind. Holy Cows, I think, is another one. There was one, Superlative Secret Society, that was okay for a while there, but there's just a handful of things that like I couldn't sell if I wanted to now, and that's kind of a crappy thing. So it adds up to pennies in the grand scheme of things, but you just wish that you could have just preserved any liquidity you could have and put that into, because if you were to pull all these things together, you'd have a material amount of ETH to be putting towards higher quality things, and I would sure love to do that in the current market climate.
Absolutely. And I've got a real problem though. If I have liquid ETH sitting in my MetaMask, I get really itchy and I just need to spend it, right? So
my policy right now is just not buying anything new, to be honest. And I will lock my MetaMask wallet from me being able to see that ETH for that reason. But even beyond that, like I'm not getting involved in Rango right now. Like I know a lot of people are pumping that. I'm just like, Goblin Town was there for a while, and then it was Bored Ape Pepe Club. Like there's just, like people need to keep busy in this market, and there's always going to be that next thing. And I don't mean to shit in anyone's bags, but I'm just not playing that game right now of like trying to catch the pump and then play the never ending game of hot potato to see who gets left holding it. I'm out right now. I'm in build mode. I got my punk. I'm happy.
Awesome. And do you have sort of a big lesson or an insight that that you sort of uncovered for yourself over the past NFT journey that you've had?
About the industry itself, or
anything. Could be anything. But
got a lot of insights along the way. I think to me it's just we so little understand today, like the power of what this could be, and what I wish to do is be the sort of call it a translator between like the professional world that's very buttoned up, KPI driven, macro focused, with that of the degen community that is pumping the aforementioned projects that we just discussed. Because on one hand, like, the degen community we talked about earlier, that's like the culture of the space, and that's like the core and the catalyst for everything that this has become and what it is today. But a lot of times they're so short-minded, or is that the right short term in their thinking, I guess, or closed-minded even in how they think about the space. And they're not wrong for it, but a lot of times that comes back to like chasing short-term profits, and people get burned in the process. And it's another impediment to taking that next step to getting us to mainstream adoption. So again, I don't fault anyone for it, but that's kind of like my learnings, I guess, over the past year, and why that's part of the reason why I don't trade as much anymore, just because I would much rather play the macro game than the micro game of sitting there, trading around JPEGs for pennies on the dollar to like hopefully scrape really thin margins, versus keeping focus on like world changing technology, which I truly believe in a number of ways this can become. So that's every day. Like that's an ongoing learning too. Is like it's been the past year and change of like realizing this, but every day it's like, holy shit, like this could actually be something that is like changes the entire foundation of society. And I don't mean to overstate things, but so many industries are ripe to be fully disrupted by the technology and what this allows us to do. So that's kind of been like my eye-opening experience, I guess, through and through over the course of these many months.
No, it's a really huge one, right? I think the old world is still thinking very short term, and I think what you're sort of uncovering, it's a missed opportunity, right? There's so much more to sort of unlock here as well. And I think the other side of it as well is the current market, the NFT market and the Web3 degens don't necessarily paint us in the best light to the rest of the world too, right? And so I think you're carrying that torch for us to really try and drag one through. So that's awesome.
Well, I think it's hard when inherently NFTs are coupled with financial instruments. Like that's the primary use case to the mainstream world right now for NFTs is investing in JPEGs and making lots of money. When you see headlines about Justin Bieber buying a Bored Ape for $1.5 million or whatever it was, that's how it breaches the masses right now, and that's not what's going to get people involved in the world. That's where my focus is what are, I think of them as bridges to adoption. Like what are the current user behaviors that are going to create a seamless onboarding experience to NFT technologies such that they don't even realize they're using NFTs. And it's all about setting up that experience. I even didn't even require education. Like the more education you require, the less likely you are to succeed. So it's just about creating, enriching products, enriching experiences that leverage the technology and do nothing more than that. It is just that, a technology. I liken it to the early internet. The internet was a novelty. I would hop on the family computer, load up the dial-up, the sequence, and it was like an activity to go on the internet. But today, it's like that's just a way of life. Like the last time I said I'm going to go use the internet is probably pre-2008. Today, you go to a website, you go to play a game, you go to send an email. Like it's the rails on which we all operate, and that is what we need to get to with NFTs. And it's the people who see that future and are building for that future that are going to win in the mid to long term. And on the flip side, I'm a little less bullish on those that are playing for the here and now, as I think it ends up in the grand scheme of things a bit of a zero-sum game.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well said, Jimmy Swag. And do you have a sort of favorite punk personality that comes to mind?
Yeah, Punk9622, and it's not close. I have a list of resources. I mentioned earlier how I don't like to indoctrinate people, but when anyone asks, I just send them like, here are the resources that got me along my journey. Like here are what triggered my aha moments, and half of them are his threads from like the middle part of 2021. He is a guy that gets it. Obviously, like that's not a juicy take by any means. I think we'd all agree. And further, just a voice of reason in the space, like the way he's able to, as someone who is a big fan of language in general and being able to eloquently describe very complex topics. Like I like to frankly pride myself on LinkedIn about doing that, as sometimes like when you get into the weeds on certain themes in Web3, even my eyes tend to gloss over. So I try to keep things simplified, but he just does it beautifully. Like the way he has mastered the language to be able to explain these concepts, I think is phenomenal. I was actually just watching today his metaverse course, and I'm halfway through it, and it's like learning it all over again. Like it's the first one was all like, what is an NFT? What's fungible versus non-fungible? And as he describes it, just like shit, he's so good at this. And I think a voice like that is so important to the space right now, but also in the future of being able to properly convey the importance of what we're doing. Not just, like I said, not just trading around JPEGs, but actually building for a decentralized future in every definition of the world, in every definition of the word, but also Freudian stuff, I guess, of the world as well.
Totally. He dropped a really good thread yesterday. I sort of went through, but it's kind of strange, right? I think you're right. He's sort of that noble sort of source of wisdom, that grandfather that's passing down a whole bunch of wisdom in NFTs, but it's just so new. We're less than sort of 2 years old, basically. And I, similar to you, when I first came on, he was probably my key source of information as well. But being super mature, but also at the same time deciphering all the crypto slang, right? So there was a thread that basically sort of said GM, fading, all these like crypto terms that basically just help you sort of get on board. So he's just as degen as all of us, but carries a very, very mature voice with him as well. That's awesome.
Well, that's the magic of his presence. I think is that he's micro enough to be authentic. Like he is a tried and true degen. He understands the culture. He lives the culture and embraces the culture, but he also understands the big picture. And that beautiful combination that I think gives value to the most effective people in this space is the ability to see both sides of that coin, because you have a lot on either side that tend to not be able to effectively see the other, where each side's gonna do certain things well in those certain worlds. But I think really to unlock the full potential of whether it be on a project level or like a macro industry movement level, you need to be able to see both sides of the aisle. And so just to echo your point, like he is a degen, but he says things that are like I've taken so many of his, I guess, proverbs almost to normie conversations that have created aha moments for other people. So I've ripped his source material time and time again, and it just speaks to like how effective he is in that role of having legs in the degen culture, but having a voice that speaks to the masses.
Yeah, awesome. Big 6529 fan as well. And if you had to describe punk culture in a single word or a few words, what would that be?
I'm gonna I haven't thought about this at all before, so I'm gonna kind of just spitball as they come to mind. The first one, for whatever reason, was Stoic, Constructive, and I'm gonna give you one more if I can think of it. Helpful, I'll throw in there as well.
Cool.
And I want to say also, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to you for helping onboard me into the punk community over the past even just handful of weeks. I spent a lot of time in a number of communities, and I alluded to it earlier, but some have been more constructive than others, and I've gotten varying degrees of value out of them. And I've been overwhelmed and not surprised, but just pleasantly aware, I guess, of how strong the punk community is with the different channels that I've gotten access to, whether it be Telegram chats or certain like secondary Discord groups that aren't the punks Discord in particular. But it's the people that are in and out of there, and not only just like the notable faces where it's like almost like your NFT idols and saying like, holy shit, I can't believe that I'm in a group chat with this person, but then how eager people are to help. And the number of times per day I see someone, whether it be for a project they're working on, or having questions, wanting support, wanting recommendations, referrals, jobs, whatever it may be, everyone's in it for one another. And I think in a space that is so financially incentivized to push their own shit, I think that is a special phenomenon to do things for the sake of other people versus doing things for the sake of your own bags. And again, that is not lost on me, and I will come to appreciate that more and more as time as a crypto punk goes on.
Awesome. No, it's an absolute delight to have you as part of our community, mate. So welcome. And if you could pass on a message to the next owner of your punk, what would you say to them?
It's a hard one to answer because having just recently acquired it and having no intent to ever sell it. Honestly, this is gonna be like a really cheesy answer, but I'm gonna predict that person to be my son one day. I don't have any kids today, but son or daughter, let's just say. My message would be I love you to my child, and then second to that would be something like don't smoke cigarettes. No, I don't know. I don't know what the exact message would be, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I guess the message would be something along the lines of like, don't forget where you came from. Like my vision would be, let's say on 18th birthday, I had to have a kid in a few years. Let's call it 20 years down the road. That's my gift to my son is my crypto punk. My vision is like, it's a passing of the torch of this movement. I don't think the end result is within 20 years. Frankly, I think we have a long ways to go in a number of different ways. And I think this is a symbol, like it is for a lot of people who are CryptoPunk holders, of being there early. And that's what I want this to represent for whoever is the recipient at some future point in time. I'm going to be inclined to say that's someone in my family. So my message would be to carry on this movement in some way, shape, or form.
That's beautiful. I'm sure when Jimmy Swag Jimmy Swag Jr. is 18, he's going to be listening to this podcast. and we'll probably appreciate that message, mate.
I'd love nothing more.
So this this is really fun today, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your time. How could sort of people find you, and I guess any sort of closing comments on your side?
Yeah, I mean, so to answer your question, first question on how you can find me, I'll dox myself just to make it formal. My name is Sam Simmons. Best place to reach me is on LinkedIn. Please do connect. I'm Jimmy Swag on JimmySwag NFT on Twitter is my handle, or JimmySwag.eth is my name. Either way, I think my DMs are open. But if it's degen activities, find me on Twitter. If it's professional activities, find me on LinkedIn. I think the message is though, like if for any punk holders that are listening to this, or anyone not punk holder for that matter, just reach out. Like I pride myself on having lots of conversations, helping as many people as I can, and just, being able to connect with all sorts of fun, exciting people in this space. So I guess my closing messages: don't be a stranger. And if I can help holders and non-holders alike in any way with any of my background, or you just want to talk JPEGs for a bit, slide into my DMs. You now know where to find me.
Slide in your DMs. Awesome. I'll put a link in the show notes as well when I release the podcast. But man, this was super fun, Sam. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to who else appears on the PunkCast in the coming months. Congratulations to you on an exciting new project you have here, and I'm very happy to have been a part of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All right, Sam.
Sure thing.
Speak soon.